A young person asked me, do I have to own real estate to sell it? So what we've been discussing is different job titles, requirements to earn the credentials, whether it be a certificate, a trade, or a degree, which are necessary to operate in a particular career field. I also put emphasis on entrepreneurship angles for students as well. That may not necessarily be the direction we go in, but the question was posed for one of my young people who wants to be involved in the real estate field. I do have a background in that area, and what I have expressed to students, well, this year, young people who want to be in that particular line of business, you don't have to do one particular title. As a matter of fact, the more revenue streams you can generate for yourself within real estate investing and the real estate field, the better off you will be. So the question was, do I have to own real estate to sell real estate? So I used in teaching what we call the Socratic technique, where essentially you answer a question with a question. You know the answer, but you're leading a student to do some research. So the question I posed was, and by the way, this student is in ROTC. She an excellent student, but she got some ankle socks on with that ROTC uniform. Don't you ever do that again. But okay, fine, no worries, because she did the research, and I'm happy and I'm proud. So, young lady, difference between a real estate agent and an owner. And then baby girl came up with an extra term, broker. Look at Mr. Renaissance man. Now, what is a broker?
Brokers are real estate agents who have completed additional training and licensing requirements. On the other hand, a realtor is a licensed real estate agent or broker who is a member of the National Association of Realtors.
Okay. So that went a little bit above and beyond your question, right? But you need that information because you have to earn your way up to being a broker. Now, what is an agent? But I tell you what.
Real estate agents are professionals licensed to organize and assist in real estate transactions.
Okay.
And are most often paid on commission.
There you go.
They may work independently or on behalf of a brokerage or another agent.
Very good, very good. Now, do you have to, so here's another question that you need to learn for yourself. Do you have to be licensed to sell real estate? So you can look that up later. No, you don't. If you own your house and you sell your house, you don't have to be licensed in anything.
But do I have to own it to sell it?
No, because if you're an agent.
But that's the point. I don't want to work. I want to work for myself, not for nobody. I don't want to work with nobody.
Okay, so you will have to generate the revenue to purchase your property and sell it, or you'll have to see, when you say work for yourself, that can mean so many things, and it's fine. You're young and you're finding your path. That is okay. That's why we're going through these terms. See, real estate, and I don't know how much you understood of what I was just. Okay, so how about this? Let me tell you what I did in real estate. Have I had that conversation with you all before? Did I explain to you how okay.
You told us about that first place, but never real estate.
Okay, no, okay, fine. So, my father was a real estate broker at one point. And y'all learn this. When you are a parent, here's an excellent reason why you should participate in extracurricular activities. And I want y'all to understand this if you plan on having a family. Your kids will do what they see you do. Very early, I remember my mom's softball trophies. Now, I didn't play baseball. I ended up playing basketball and running track. But I remember that distinctly. Dad had his hunting rifles at that time on racks in the living room. I ended up learning how to hunt. I could go on and on about those types of things, but look now, if all you can tell your children about school, when they say, Mom, Dad, what'd you do when you went to school? And all you can say is, I went. Look now, you're setting the pace for mediocrity in your very own child. Now, seeing those signs that said, Mr. Renaissance Man Real Estate, that's not my dad's real name, obviously, but just for the purposes of YouTube, that's how we're going to keep it. I remember seeing that, right? And what ends up happening, whatever habits you had, good or bad, you're going to see them repeat in your child. Just remember that. Okay, that being said,
I don't want kids.
Well, we'll talk about that later. I don't want to get us too far off track. Now, I ended up, while I was in college, I was working at Radio Shack. And a lady and her, I was guessing at the time it was her son, walked in. And he was buying some things, and she was talking about him closing on his house. And I asked, what does that mean? I was 18 years old. Excuse me, ma'am, what is closing on a house? And she said, well, that's my son, and he's buying a house. A very nice lady, too, by the way. I'm not going to say her name on here. I don't know if she wants her name said, but I tell you, I learned a lot from this lady, and you'll hear what I mean in just a moment. So I looked at the young man, and I realized he was about the same age as me. Now, I'm in college at the time. I transferred from Louisiana Tech, and I was back in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, attending LSU. And I'm looking like, okay, wait a minute. I asked what type of work the young man did. He was actually making less money than I did. And at the time, I was more educated as far as education on paper. But what I noticed was this young man is buying a house, and I'm living in an apartment. So I asked the lady, ma'am, you think I could buy a house? And she said, absolutely. And, you know, my father died when I was 16. We never had that conversation. I just knew it was possible to purchase property. I knew my mom owned our house. I didn't realize what it took to finance a piece of real estate or to purchase a piece of real estate. So it turns out this lady was a real estate broker, and she had her own company. So she explained to me that that's what she did for a living, and she handed me a card. And she said, if you're interested, I can show you what you need to do to buy a house. At that time, now houses are a little bit more expensive than what they were back then. But then again, there are some houses which are not that expensive. And this house is located at 7035 North Buttonwood Drive, right over there off of Silverleaf. When you come into Silverleaf from the dollar store and you turn right, it's that first house. The first street, and then you go through the loop. I forget the name of that first street, but it changes to Buttonwood Drive. So, and this is about 20 years ago, y'all. Y'all give me some time to recall all the events. So she gave me a card. The first thing she told me I needed to do was to get finance if I wasn't going to be able to pay in cash, which at the time, working at Radio Shack, making anywhere from $1,200 on a bad month to about $1,800 on a good month, I didn't have cash to buy a house. So she sent me to what's called a mortgage company. A mortgage is a loan for a property. There's a vehicle loan. There's personal loans from banks. A loan for a property is what you call a mortgage. So the mortgage broker told me what things I needed to provide her. They needed check stubs. They needed an ID. They needed an application. There were some questions about my work history, how long I had been working, what they're doing, and they needed a credit report, but they pulled that on their own. What they're doing is determining, can you afford to buy this house, and are you likely to pay back this mortgage loan for this home? That house was listed at $65,000. It was what you call a HUD home, and it was a foreclosure. HUD is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. When houses get foreclosed on, or when the city government, and well, it might not be city government, I don't know all of the details about HUD, but basically when somebody abandons a home or gets foreclosed on, there are moments in time when HUD gets control of properties and they sell them at discounted prices. So and before I got to that part, after the broker got the notification that I was qualified to, or what's called pre-qualified to purchase this home, she began showing me houses, meaning literally taking me to houses and helping me to pick one that I like. That particular location, it was kind of close to my mother. It's in the neighborhood I grew up in. I felt comfortable there then. I still live in this neighborhood now. I love my community. That's a side note, but that's where I was okay living at. So I said, okay, hey, it's just me. Oh, and by the way, that house ended up being cheaper than my apartment. I'm going a little bit out of turn, but understand that generally you can buy a home and the price that you pay per month be cheaper than an apartment. FYI. Now, we saw a few homes that ended up being the one that I liked for whatever reason. I made the home purchase on what's called the first-time home buyers program. So if you're buying a home for the first time, if you're willing to agree to live there, it used to be 5 years as minimum. They'll basically pay most of your down payment, most of your closing costs. This is only for your first purchase. If you buy, there was another government program that I qualified for as well. And it might have been that it was a HUD mortgage loan. I can't quite remember. FHA, First Time Home Buyers Association. So that was more funds that they deducted from the total price of the home if I agreed to the terms and kept the terms of the first time home buyer program and stayed there for at least 5 years. So the home was listed at $68,000. By the time I was done with the first time home buyers program and the FHA, I got the home for $35,000. So my mortgage was $230 a month, something like that. The rent at the apartment I was at was like $350 a month at that time, which you're not going to see that anymore. But, and that was in, it was $350 or something like that. Anyhow, so once that procedure was done and I looked at how this lady got to make her own schedule, I looked at how happy she was working. I looked at the fact that she owned a couple of pieces of property, how she was able to help her child get a home. And I said, wait a minute, what do I need to do to sell real estate? And she laughed and she gave me the referral to the place where she got her real estate license. It took about 2 weeks to take the course. I want to say at the time, maybe $500 to pay the fees and get licensed. And I want you to understand this, young lady. This is how I began buying my properties. They'll give you a real estate book, a Louisiana real estate law, and I think it may say real estate law and other topics. But basically, you only need about a third of the book to pass the test. But I read the whole book and I learned about real estate finance. So that's how I bought my first rental properties. So what I learned very quickly, and this is for me, and I started off wrong because nobody told me. I started off selling cheap houses. So what ends up happening is I put myself in the inexpensive house market. You don't make big commissions on inexpensive houses. So people weren't exactly seeing me as an expert in selling $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 houses. First impressions last a lifetime, but that's okay. So the commissions on selling these houses, the amount of money I was making versus the time I was spending showing people multiple inexpensive houses was not worth my time. So what I learned was, okay, number one, I always wore a shirt and tie or at least a dress shirt everywhere I went. So what people did do was learn and listen to, they listened to what I had to say and they judged me a certain type of way. and people perceive me to be an intelligent individual. So people gave me information freely because if I have nothing else, I have decent communication skills. And I try to teach that to you as well. Now, what I learned was by reading that whole real estate book was, you know what? You can, if your credit score is good enough, the projected earnings of a home can be used to offset the cost because it's understood. Now, your down payment will be more, but I bought my first rental property, and I bought another, and I bought another, and I bought another. Now, some more things started to change. When people saw that I had went from owner to agent to investor, people started presenting me with different opportunities, and those different opportunities presented themselves in multiple fashions. So one particular example is a local company whose name I won't say. The broker who had showed me how to get in the real estate business and how to become an agent, she had a service that she provided where she got paid to estimate the possible cost, selling price for foreclosed homes. They would pay her anywhere from $25 to $100, maybe more sometimes, to take photos of a home. Even though I'm not trained in carpentry, you sell real estate and you pay attention, you can learn what possible, like for example, if there's a crack in a wall, that is probably because if there's a crack in the wall and there's a branch from a tree over the house, that means those branches, the branches of a tree, are just as long as the roots and vice versa. Therefore, that crack in the wall is because there's a root growing under that home and it is breaking up the foundation. So you have to take those things into account because somebody who buys that house, they got to fix it later. You learn how to tell when a roof is leaking. You learn how to tell when there are plumbing problems. You learn how to estimate the age of a house by looking at them. Anyhow, you can take all those into account and you can pretty much estimate based on what other houses are selling for, how much that one might sell for. So instead of them sending one of their workers out there, they just pay you $100, send those pictures, send us an estimate, thank you. We'll forward your check to you. Back then they used checks. We'll forward your check to you in about a week or so. So what I had going was I bought and sold my own properties. I was an agent sometimes, and I got commissions. I had my rental property, which was really how I was making my living, and then I made extra money selling foreclosed properties. So those are some examples of different ways you can make money in real estate. And now with the internet, there are more things you can do out there now. So for example, I had to go to a title company to sign my closing documents. Now, they can send a title agent to you with digital documents. They can print them. They can, if somebody's in another state, they can forward, a PDF with that person's signature. I mean, you have people that have services that help you to be mobile and to make these transactions go faster. I'm not in the industry right now. I don't know all of them, but you're young. You can do your research. But essentially what I'm trying to tell you, the career path you're looking at is more about how creative you can be. Because you got to remember, in Louisiana is, it's what I call, it's not a real term, but Louisiana's laws are very, very open. So for example, in some states you have to, if you want a firearm, you have to fill out certain documents and I mean, if you buy from a gun store in Louisiana, you have to do this too. But you have to fill out ATF documents, do a background check, so forth and so on. Or if you go to a gun show, pay your money, here's a receipt, and you walk out the door. Why? Because in Louisiana, you can sell things like that. You can sell real estate the same way. You can actually do what's called a bill of sale. And if you have the title to a home, that means you own it. You don't have a mortgage, you own it. You can hand the title over. I just did this with a vehicle I bought from my company. A homeboy of mine, he had a van that he wanted to sell for a cheap price. He had the title. I paid him the money. We went to the title company. He gave me the title. I gave him, I'd already given him the money. He signed the title over. The notary person at the title company signed that vehicle over to me. No dealership. We didn't have to go to the DMV. We didn't. It's a done deal. And you can actually do the same thing with property. So The sky's the limit as far as what you can do. What I want you to do is to go into the field understanding the different possibilities. So, two things I want to summarize that we discussed in this video. Number one, it's important to understand the different job titles that are out there. Two, it's important to understand the overall business, the overall industry that you're getting into. And three, when you decide that you want to take your services and turn it into a service that someone can use, or you have a product that you want to sell, as long as you understand what the possibilities are, they're endless, because you can eventually create new possibilities. You can create new options. You can recreate the wheel, whatever the case may be. Bottom line is this: if you can provide value, somebody's going to pay for it. If that house is valuable, somebody's going to pay for it. If your opinion on a matter is valuable, somebody will pay for it. If me tutoring kids after school is valuable enough to a parent, they'll pay for it. If me having a background in counseling is valuable to whatever company, they'll pay me for my opinion on their client. Do you see how that works? You have to provide value. The shoes are valuable, even though one pair of shoes costs $20. If they're valuable enough to you where you want to pay $100, somebody's going to sell them for $100. Does it make sense now? So what you have to learn is how to bring value, how to solve problems, whether that be by a service or by a product. So your next step, those different terms which represent the people in that industry, understand what those terms are. As far as this particular lesson, I do suppose I'm going to have to make some other parts of it, but this one is somewhat relevant to the real estate industry for anybody who may want to kind of know how that works. I'm pretty sure there are better experts on it, but for the reference of me speaking to high school students, that's my experiences. And understand, somebody from right here in the same neighborhood you live in, and I'm not the only one, but you have a few people who've come from here who've done real estate or who've had and still have ventures in real estate. So you just understand, if that's what you want to do, you can do it. You most certainly can. You just have to put in the work. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.